Hello everybody, I'm Brett, and welcome to Nightwood Guns. Today we're going to be talking about Caniks, just Caniks in general. I'm right now working on a full review of the Canik TP9 SFX. So because of that, we're going to focus more today on the TP9 SF Elite. So Canik is imported by Century Arms. They're made in Turkey. Are they any good? The answer is yes. Not only are they good, they are phenomenal, especially for the price point. So what exactly makes Canik so good? I'm sure by now you've heard some buzz about them on the internet. They've been around for quite a while now, and there are a bunch of different versions out there. The fact of the matter is, number one, they are dead to rights reliable. I mean, these things absolutely run. The magazine will fail you before the firearm ever does. And number two, the trigger, right out of the box, is going to be one of the best, if not the best, striker fire trigger that you can get on a stock gun. Now the funky thing about the trigger is it's like a three-stage trigger. You press and you hit a wall, and then you hit the second wall, and then you press through it. But once you prep the trigger to the final stage, the reset is instant, and the trigger press, it breaks like glass. This thing is super easy to shoot. And it also has Mekgar magazines, which Mekgar makes some of the best magazines in the world, so that's a plus. And it also features a Cerakote over phosphate finish, which has proven to be pretty durable. One of the great and fun things about Caniks are the little attentions to detail that they put into the gun for the price point. For example, you get a fiber optic front sight with a blacked out U-notch rear from Warren, and they're steel sights, so they're strong. You get a Picatinny rail, which, I mean, is pretty standard these days, but for the price point, it's cool that it's there. You get some cool little stippling on the frame of the gun that you're probably not going to use. You get an ambidextrous slide release that I could take it or leave it. And you also have a loaded chamber indicator that, again, I'll take it or leave it. So Brett, if Caniks are so wonderful and they have all these little cool details in them and they're reliable, why shouldn't I just replace all of my striker fire guns with Caniks? Well, Caniks do fall short in a couple of areas. Number one is ergonomics. It's just not a very comfortable gun to hold on to. And that's pretty low on my priority list, so I don't really count that against the Canik so much, but it's worth mentioning. It's a feature of a gun, something that you compare to competitors. Going in with ergonomics, the stippling on the side of the gun isn't that strong or aggressive, and because of that, if you get a little sweaty or your hands get wet, you can feel it slipping on your support hand if you're not really bearing down with the grip. Also, the ambidextrous slide release really adds to the width of the gun. If you look at it pretty closely there, you can see that the widest point of the gun is the slide release. I would almost prefer that it was more like a Glock and it was more of a slide catch than a slide release to keep the overall width of the gun down, which is, you know, one of the reasons it falls short. Carrying inside the waistband, this thing can feel pretty chunky because of its width. And my final and biggest gripe about the Canik is the weight of the gun. And the weight of the gun is purely in this big, chunky slide. Now the problem with that is when you have this really, really heavy slide riding over the top of your hand that is reciprocating while you're shooting it, it can make the Canik feel flippier than other competitors such as the CZ-P10, Glocks, and even SIG P320s, HK VP9s, Smith & Wesson M&Ps. This thing just feels a little flippier on the muzzle than the other ones because there's so much weight reciprocating over your hand. And while this gun has a really nice beaver tail for you to get up into...
Nice beaver.
Thank you. I just had it stuffed.
Let me help you with that.
You can see how much of the frame is still above your hand before it gets to the slide. So you can't really get your hand too high up on it. I wish I could get it higher, and I wish the slide was less chunky and lighter weight. However, since the gun is so heavy, it makes it feel like it's built like a tank. I mean, this thing, it feels like you could, you know, run this over with a tank and pick it up and it would still function. It's one of those things where you pick up a Canik and its heft and its weight makes you feel like, huh, this thing feels expensive. And then you look at the price and you're like, whoa, what's wrong with it? Why is it so cheap? And that being said, mechanically speaking, reliability-wise, there's nothing wrong with this gun. I mean, it even has a polished feed ramp. This thing has fed everything that I've put through it. And if you want to talk about the track record of the gun, go over to James Yeager's channel. He uses these things as rentals and loaners in his classes, and they have an insane amount of rounds through them, and they run, they hold up. The magazine will fail before the gun ever does. As far as accuracy goes, I mean, this gun is more accurate than you'll ever be. You don't have to worry about any kind of keyholing. This thing does have a match-grade barrel in it, and because of that, it's going to perform the way that you need it to perform. With most modern-day striker fire handguns, or most modern handguns in general, the accuracy is no longer an issue. We've gotten to the point where materials are good, tolerances can be tight enough while maintaining reliability that the gun is going to be accurate unless there's just this horrible accident in manufacturing.
Gonna make that dream come true, and we'll do it our way, yes, our way, make all our dreams come true.
So if you came to this video because you were considering buying a Canik, whether it's for a budget reason or because you just like it, I would say go ahead and buy it because you will not regret your purchase. It is a phenomenal firearm that is very well made and it will serve you well. Thanks for stopping by to hear me talk about Caniks for a bit. Be sure to check me out on Instagram at Nightwood Guns. I'm Brett, and this was Nightwood Guns. Nightwood out.